everybody was really happy for Alex Smith when we saw him get back on the football field this past season. Although everybody was probably, like hiding their eyes from the TV screen at the same time. I mean, I know every single time I saw somebody come and hit Alex Smith, I kind of like clenched up in my seat. I was just kind of like, oh, please don't hurt him. It was great to see Alex Smith back on a football field. I think everybody felt that mutual joy for Alex Smith, but apparently the Washington football team, according to Alex Smith, didn't feel so enthused by it. And, I think a lot of this was maybe blown out of proportion a little bit, maybe taken a little bit out of context, but an article came out on Tuesday, and Alex Smith did an interview with OG, and he stated that the Washington football team did not want him on the football field, they didn't want him on the roster, and they didn't want to give him a chance. And he said, quote, "It's like getting this close to the end of a marathon, and they're telling me that you can't finish that race. It's like expletive that I'm finishing this race." So, according to Alex Smith, like during his rehab, the Washington football team was like, or towards the end of his rehab, the Washington football team was like, "Look, we don't really want you to play. You're coming off an injury that is nearly catastrophic. I mean, you nearly died. We don't want you to play." And Alex Smith took it personally. And, listen, I respect Alex Smith a whole bunch. As I said, I started the segment saying, look, the entire world was happy for Alex Smith when he came back. It was really a feel-good story in a crummy year. I would argue that Alex Smith coming back and playing football in 2020 was an absolute highlight of that year, especially in sports, especially with coronavirus, especially in a time when everybody was feeling down. Alex Smith returning to sports was a really feel-good story that everybody appreciated. And I respect him a lot for it. I respect his grind. I respect his work ethic to get back. And I don't want to take away what Alex Smith has done to get back to football. But, and I don't think many people are going to like me for this, but personally, I don't think the Washington football team did anything out of the ordinary. And I think I would have done the exact same thing. Now, granted, I probably would have communicated my feelings towards Alex Smith a little bit better than just saying, hey, look, I don't think you should play. I would, go into more of the sentimental side of things and said, look, man, we appreciate what you've done for us. We appreciate, how hard you're fighting to get back on the football field. We're just not comfortable with you out there because we don't want you to get hurt again. I would communicate that up front. But obviously, not everybody is a communicator like I am. I mean, I'm talking to you, I'm talking to a camera, and I'm communicating like you're there. This is a show where I talk pretty much all the time. So communication is my strong suit. Not everybody's strong suit is communication. And with that being said, when you think of the context of the fact that, look, Alex Smith almost died from this injury. He's sitting in a hospital bed. Reports are he's lucky to be alive, and he's sitting there with a football in his hand saying, "I do not want to play football ever again. I'm not thinking about playing football ever again." When you think about it in that context, can you really blame the Washington football team for wanting to move on? It's like, come on, dude. You almost died. You have, for what's most people, a career-ending injury, and now you're kind of upset at the football team for, logically saying, okay, there's a very high chance that this person doesn't play again, and if he does play again, he's going to get hurt again. It's like, for me, anyways, the Washington football team was practicing common sense when they were playing the odds, exactly like they should. The Washington football team has to put out a competent football team pretty much every single year. And I can understand about, maybe reservations, some personal feelings about not putting Alex Smith on the roster. And apparently, according to him, he had to fight to get himself on the roster. But again, I don't feel like the Washington football team did anything wrong. Because logically, if you think about it in the perspective of saying, okay, look, we have this quarterback. Okay, we got the quarterback. He's older. Okay. He just broke his leg in such a horrific fashion that he nearly died from it. Okay. It's like, oh yeah, but he's rehabbing and he wants to get put back on the football team. I don't know about that one, Chief. It's like, I understand why Alex Smith is upset at the Washington football team. And, I don't knock him for being upset at the football team for that reason. Like, if you're fighting so hard for something and somebody slams a door in your face and says, no, you can't do that, I would be upset too. But to be super, vindictive towards the Washington football team for making a football business decision that is logical and makes sense, it's like, come on, dude. Like, you need to be able to sympathize and view things from the alternate perspective apart from your own. And the alternate perspective is like, if I guarantee you, at least, I'll stand on my hill on this. If anybody else, if anybody else were in the front office positions for the Washington football team, and they saw what Alex Smith went through and what he underwent, they probably would have written him off too. So and Alex Smith did such an incredible job of getting back and working so hard to be able to play in the NFL again. It was really miraculous. It's like you're happy for that person, but it's like when you're playing the odds and you need to plan for the future for your football team and you want to be a competitive football team, it's like you can't blame the football team for mentally writing you out of your plans when you had a near-death injury on the football field and you may never be the same again. It's like, again, I hope I'm communicating that clearly, because it's like, I don't want to take anything away from Alex Smith. I don't want to take away how hard he worked. I don't want to take away the mental toll that it's probably taken on him to get back to the situation, and probably how awful it felt to have the team that you are fighting so badly to come back and play for say, no, we don't really want to play you for this X, and X reasons. I understand why he's upset, but he has to have some sympathy here, or some empathy rather, for what that football team has to do without him. You have to find a new quarterback. You have to move on. You have to try and be competitive. And when you look at the business side, it's like, I don't think that the Washington football team did anything out of the ordinary apart from not communicate their wishes for Alex Smith correctly. And again, if the reality of his injury is that I guarantee you that if we go back in time to that injury, most people would be saying there is no way that he plays football again. So if we're all thinking that, you got to be damn sure that the Washington football team was thinking that as well, and you can't blame them from taking the steps necessary to try and find a future for themselves at quarterback, and in the moment not necessarily feel like, that you're going to be able to come back and play. And again, he did come back and play, and he won Washington football. He won the Washington football team a bunch of games, and it was a great feel-good story. The comeback player of the year, a real feel-good story in what was a horrific year for most people in 2020. And everybody's happy for him, myself included. But I don't know, to come out in this interview and kind of take shots at the Washington football team and say they didn't want me to play, they didn't want me on the roster, they weren't giving me a chance. It's like, you were sitting on a hospital bed after a near-death injury. Why, logically, if they're playing the odds from a business decision, would you think that they are going to just open the gates back up to you? Maybe that's a little cruel, and again, maybe people don't like this take from me, but that's kind of just how I feel in this point. I mean, I don't think, again, and at this point I'm just repeating myself, so we'll end it here after this short statement, but it's okay. I'm happy for Alex Smith. I'm happy that you got back. I'm happy that you worked so hard. I recognize the effort. I would have communicated with you better if I was a Washington football team executive, but from a football standpoint, a business standpoint, they didn't do anything wrong. They absolutely played the cards the way that they should, and just because they closed the door on you like that, you can't really have personal hatred against a team like that for making a business decision like that. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say, now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.